Why do wrestling games get the names they're given? Well, most of the time it's due to promotion and or name recognition, such as an event or a weekly TV show. Nitro was hot, why not name a game after it? Thunder isn't getting the viewership we'd hoped for, name a game after it and maybe it'll propel the brand. SmackDown launched in 1999 and was pretty much an instant success. Within a year we would see a fully branded SmackDown game, the first venture on the PS1 for THQ since acquiring the WWF license. The franchise would go on for quite some time, eventually branching into SmackDown vs. Raw, incorporating both of the promotion's biggest weekly television shows into the name, and eventually just being known as WWE. Well, that's bizarre. Imagine if there was NASCAR 98 or some... Okay, I see what they did. When a game is released to promote a one-time specific event, it's usually released before the date of said event. Such was the case with Wcw Mayhem, released in August of 1999, with the pay-per-view event airing in November of the same year. This helps create a buzz for the brand, but sometimes these releases don't pan out. WWF No Mercy was a pay-per-view event that took place on October 22, 2000, yet the game, with the very same name, was released almost an entire month later. I guess in the grand scheme of things, it truly isn't all that important, but then why make a great game named after a middle-tier pay-per-view anyway? Its predecessor was WrestleMania 2000, which was released half a year before the actual event. Why not call this game WrestleMania 17? We got WrestleMania 18 and 19 on the GameCube, and even WrestleMania 21 for the Xbox, but I'd rather not talk about that one. And what about all the WrestleMania titles before that? I mean, holy hell, there's a ton of them. Though it makes sense, it is the biggest, most recognized event in all of pro wrestling. I mean, sports entertainment. We also got more than one Royal Rumble game, the promotion's second biggest pay-per-view event. I always felt like Wwf Attitude was a good name. I mean, this was the company's tagline, and it defined an entire era. Too bad the game doesn't hold up as strongly as the product it's modeled after. Warzone was another good one, named after the edgier second hour of Raw is War, which was a weekly show that also received more than one game based on the branding. Another event that saw a video game adaptation was WWF In Your House, though this one was a stretch as it had nothing to do with the pay-per-view event, nor did it take place in a house. Okay, maybe one or two stages did, but it wasn't your house or even my house. This was clearly just shameless promotion at its finest. While Wcw Backstage Assault is probably the worst big promotion wrestling game that I've ever played, the name is probably the most straightforward. There's no arena and no ring, and the name pretty much tells you this right off of the bat, which was definitely a good call. I mean, could you imagine the backlash if this game would have been named Bash at the Beach? Speaking of backlash, that was the intended name for the cancelled and unreleased sequel to WWF No Mercy. Some titles are also a little generic, like WCW NWO Revenge. Revenge for what? I know, it's in the opening cutscene, but for promotional purposes, why not name it after a big-name pay-per-view or something associated with the WCW brand? Still, this would become one of, if not my favorite wrestling game of all time, so again, we see that a name isn't everything. WCW vs. NWO World Tour and WCW vs. The World were similar sounding titles, and I actually got the two mixed up quite frequently when I was a kid. I don't know if this was strategic to make the consumer think about both games? Those sneaky devils. Oh yeah, remember when I mentioned the 1999 release of WCW Mayhem? WWE dropped their own Mayhem almost 20 years later. Out of all of the possible names, why pick the same name that a rival company used for a game that didn't do well based on a mediocre pay-per-view that took place during the downturn of a successful run? What a strange move. And then there's the 2K series. The 2K series. This was previously SmackDown, then SmackDown vs. Raw, then WWE. We went over it already, I know, but after THQ folded, 2K picked up the WWE license and felt it was necessary as part of their branding to associate the game with the 2K series of sporting games. You know, like NBA 2K, insert last digits of year here. Even though they didn't always make sense and could be dumb or generic, I miss unique names of wrestling games. WWE 2K blank simply confirms it's the same old game year after year with the same look, gameplay, and minor updates. As a good man once said,
"Well, enough is enough, and it's time for a change!"